We are back from the bye week and thrilled to be joined again by the Chicago Tribune's Dan Wiederer. Dan, as you look at this game, Bears a near double-digit underdog at home against the Eagles. Nothing about that is surprising, but what are you looking for as this Bears team matches up against the best of the NFC?
Yeah, best in the NFC against the worst in the NFC. And so you want to figure out how big that gap is. Everything that we talk about with the 2022 Chicago Bears revolves around the quarterback, Justin Fields. And so while he has shown us some really, really promising growth, he's put together some record-setting performance. He's had these long touchdowns, both as a runner and as a passer. Now you want to see him take this test against one of the best defenses in the NFL. The Eagles will come to town with 49 sacks. No team in the NFL has more this season than they have. They have 24 takeaways. No team in the NFL has more than they have. And so Justin Fields and the Bears offense, as currently constructed, obviously shorthanded in a lot of different ways, has to try to meet this moment and take this test and get something out of it. I was encouraged to see how excited Justin Fields was on Thursday evening, saying he's excited, right? And he really wants to have these moments and these stages and these tests to help his growth come along. And so now let's just go play a game on Sunday and see how it turns out.
Not only his excitement for it, Dan, but just the calm, presence that he had about him. There was it as he was explaining how things have kind of slowed down for him, and he feels like he's just there, just playing football. And that's come with the growth and come with the improvement. And for him to look back at week 2 against Green Bay and openly admit, well, we were not good at all, and to see how far that they have come, I think that is promising and exciting to watch. Do you anticipate the Bears' pass protection, which was good against Green Bay, to be equally as good against the Eagles defense?
The short answer is no, because this Eagles defense is just too tough. You're talking about Hassan Reddick. You're talking about Fletcher Cox. You're talking about Brandon Graham. You're talking about Javon Hargrave. You're talking about all these guys that can rush the passer and that they can run these rotations up front that are going to challenge you all game long, both in terms of your concentration and your stamina, because they will wear you down. And then the game will get into the fourth quarter and you'll have nothing left because they've been challenging you all day. I think what's interesting about Justin comparing really the week 2 performance against the Packers in Green Bay to the last game they played, which obviously before the bye was against the Packers, is the growth they've made. Justin had one of his best days as a passer against the Packers a couple weeks ago. And part of it was because he felt protected by that line up front. The other part of it was just naturally, he is gaining pocket presence, pocket poise, pocket vision. And you heard him on Thursday evening talking about just kind of the feel that he has. And it's, he couldn't quite put his finger on what it is, but sort of described it as a calm, a comfort, and just a rhythm within the flow of a game that he said, look, when we get out there Sunday, I want to be able to trace back to that and be right back in that feeling so that I can feel really, really in command of everything I'm seeing and everything our offense is doing. This is going to be a great test to see if you can carry it over from week to week to week.
It seems, though, the largest test will be for a undermanned Bears defense against an offense that includes Jalen Hurts, who can run, can throw, barely has a weakness. And this is a Bears defensive front that barely gets any pressure on the quarterback. Like, how big of a task is this truly for them?
So the stat I dug up this week that'll blow your mind is the third quarter of week 6 against the Commanders was the last time a Bears defensive end had a sack, right? Those are the guys that you pay to put the quarterback on the ground. They've had sacks from defensive linemen and safeties and linebackers, but their defensive ends have not been able to put the quarterback on the ground in a while. Jalen Hurts is a hard guy to get on the ground. He's such a dual threat quarterback. And you've heard the praise all week out of Lake Forest about the things he's doing that are just keeping this offense humming, right? He's just, very sure of himself with where he's going with the football. He's very sure of what he's seeing from an opposing defense and able to recognize and understand coverages and understand what that means for that given play. You heard Matt Eberflus praise that earlier in the week. And then you heard Jalen Johnson on Thursday just talking about how he doesn't really take a lot of high-risk chances. And so when you're able to do that, when you're able to be very conservative yet very productive, as this Eagles offense has been, now all of a sudden the opposing defense has got a full day's work in front of them because it's not easy to put them on the ground. It's not easy to take the ball away from them. It's not easy to get them to punt. And so now you've got to be really, really solid to keep them from scoring north of 30 points. The Bears have given up 33.5 points per game during their 6-game losing streak. The Eagles come into town leading the NFL with a 29.7 points per game average. So as you mentioned, that's a little bit of a mismatch, and the Bears are going to have to try to minimize that as much as they can.
Just don't give up 50 points. Okay, so when you look at what Justin Fields has done already, 95 yards from becoming just the third 1,000-yard rushing quarterback, how elite is that status and to be in that conversation, especially in today's NFL?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's historic, obviously. The only 2 quarterbacks to have rushed for 1,000 yards in the Super Bowl era are Michael Vick and Lamar Jackson, who's done it twice. And so you're in elite company. And what's been interesting to hear Justin's perspective on this is that he wasn't a running threat first in college at Ohio State. You're a Buckeyes fan. You saw what the career he had there for a couple of years was. This is a different dimension to his game, and it's allowed the Bears to unlock different things. It was by necessity in a lot of ways, by design and by necessity, because they had to do something to get this offense unlocked. They've got it unlocked now, and it's going to be interesting to see how it evolves. But Justin Fields has a chance sometime on Sunday to set the Bears single-season franchise record for rushing yards by a quarterback in a season, breaking Bobby Douglas's 50-year-old record, and then he can pursue Michael Vick and Lamar Jackson and perhaps end this season as the quarterback who's rushed for more yards than anyone in history. That's elite. When you get to the top of a record book like that, that's elite. Now, I think obviously the challenge for the Bears is figuring out a way to blend that, sort of how the Eagles have with Jalen Hurts, and still allow your quarterback to be a dynamic, dangerous running threat while bringing your passing game along, so you don't have the top-ranked rushing offense in the league and the 32nd ranked passing offense in the league.
Yikes. Do you buy into this comparison? We talked about it this week that, a couple years ago, the Eagles were a 4-win team, and now here they are at 12-1, best in the NFC. Do you buy into that, should be a mirror or some sort of a goal for this kind of a Bears team, or is the rebuild bigger here in Chicago?
The goal certainly would be to be in the Super Bowl conversation 2 years from now, like the Eagles are, right? And that's something the Bears have to go to. But to your point, I think it's really easy all the time to look at best case scenarios. And so if you're a team like the Bears and you're 3-10, you say, look, the Eagles turned it around. Look, last year's Bengals turned it around. There are a lot of teams that also get stuck, and they get stuck in the bottom tier, or they elevate to the middle tier, and then they fall back down to the bottom tier, and then they get to the middle tier. And so it's really hard to draw those comparisons. You hear it with Justin Fields. People want him to be Jalen Hurts. People want him to be Josh Allen. People want to see him take these huge leaps to become a superstar quarterback. Well, it's difficult. It's really, really hard. And there's a lot of variables that go into that, including support and cast. This Bears team needs so much talent, Dionne. They need so much more depth. And I think that's why these next 2 weeks, particularly Sunday against the Eagles and then Christmas Eve against the Bills, will be telling for us to see, that's how much talent a Super Bowl hopeful team has. That's how much more talent we need. I know people are really excited about all the money that Ryan Poles is going to have to spend this spring, but I don't think they're also sort of matching that up with the long list of needs. If you have a lot of money to spend and you got 4 or 5 needs, well, now the world is at your fingertips. But if you have all this money to spend and you're trying to fill 40 holes, now you've got to ration that, and you've got to be smart and practical and strategic and savvy. All those things come into the equation. This Bears team is a long, long way away, and as encouraging as Justin's play has been for 2 months, I think people have to realize just how far away from the mountaintop they really are, and just temper expectations just a little bit to make sure they're allowed to make that climb without accelerating the timeline to unrealistic proportions.
If this feels like a silly question based on everything you just told me, but I predicted the Bears would have 4 wins this season. Do they get that 4th one on Sunday?
No, they do not. I remember you making that prediction back in August or early September and being like, wow, Dionne really is down on this team. I think I was at like the 6-7 range, and I was trying to cross myself over to the 7 range, and I was like, nah, I better stay at 6. But man, the way the season has unfolded and all the things that have gone on that leave them here at 3-10 and now facing the Eagles, the Bills, the Lions, and the Vikings on the way out the door, and they may not win again. And so you may actually have overstated their potential win total. And remember, you got a lot of heat for that. So you have every right to save those receipts and go back at people when we get to January 10th and say, hey, look who had the lowest win total in the city, and look who's right.
They'll get one more. It just won't happen Sunday.
No. 30-13 Eagles.
All right. Thanks, Sam.